to let you know you're one of my kind. I need you tonight, 'cause I'm not sleeping. There's something about you, girl, that makes me sweat.
Welcome back, my friends, to this episode 8 of the Intermediary Diaries. We are going to be talking about mimics. I am Artemaeus, your storyteller, and I have a few, actually, good stories for you, my own personal experiences with mimics. So my own personal theory about mimics is that because humans are generally pretty skittery creatures, when we see things that we aren't sure about, it tends to trigger us into that fight or flight response, and then, who knows what's going to happen at that point. And for any entity wanting to interact with us, that might not be the most wanted response. So I think mimics will take on whatever form that individual person may be more at ease with seeing, or in some cases, if that mimic is looking for more energetic response, might come across as something that would evoke a fear response. Or perhaps if they're just looking to blend in and gain some perspective, then taking on the form of something that maybe looks like another human being might be more appropriate. In my case, I'd like to think that I'm, pretty sturdy, pretty hardy, pretty hard to scare, but that's obviously not true because my personal mimic experiences were of someone that I was very familiar with, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what's coming to mind right now, and that if any of you have watched the series South Park, there is an episode in there where Earth is a reality TV series for intergalactic beings. And when the South Park boys get to talk to one of these intergalactic beings, in order to make the boys feel more at ease, they are allowed to determine what this being takes the shape of. And in this case, it's a taco that poops ice cream. So in the form of South Park, what else would it be? But it kind of makes sense. And I think it's interesting that that episode cued into the fact that other entities will take on forms that, again, would be less scary for humans if they're looking to gain some interaction that isn't fear-based. In my case, I have 2 interactions with a mimic. The first one was me laying in bed, as often my interactions tend to be more during my twilight, in-between wake and sleep states. And I'm laying in bed, and my wife is next to me, my lovely wife, Tillie. And I am visioning her reaching over with her hand, and I'm going to wake up to be, to get up out of bed. And she says, "Shh, go back to sleep." And her hand comes over and she, goes to put it over my face. And that is never something that my wife would ever do. In fact, it's usually the opposite. I'm usually telling my wife, I just need a few more minutes. Go back to sleep. I can't get up right now. Where she's up and bouncing around like a ping pong ball. And I realize immediately that that's not something that she would ever do. And I start to try to wake up. But what happens is I feel, like when you get on a roller coaster and that intense G-force that just plasters you back into your seat. I go to lift my head up and I feel like it weighs 10,000 pounds. And I like that where you're like, if you were to stick your head out the window and your cheeks flapping, I literally feel like the skin on my face is just like peeling back towards the bed, and I'm struggling just to wake up, get up, physically get up, and I just feel this heaviness, super, super tired, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to sleep, like that toddler that's just fighting you before bed, time to go to bed. No, I don't want to. And I'm fighting, and then all of a sudden, it just lifts because I'm struggling so hard, and so I pop out of bed, and I look over again. Tillie's sound asleep next to me, which seems very strange. Wake her up. No, indeed, she was sleeping. And to tell her about this instance, she found it was interesting why, this particular encounter would choose to mimic her. Fast forward to the early morning hours of my 35th birthday. And again, I'm in bed, and I think I'm awake, but I'm apparently, in this twilight dream state. And Tillie initiates a game of, wrestling around a little bit, which has, a little bit of a naughty edge to it, maybe. And I'm thinking, ooh, all right. Happy birthday to me, right? So we're wrestling around, a little bit in bed, and she pins me on top of the bed. And I'm going, okay, that's new, but all right, we can try something a little bit edgy. Maybe this will be cool, And I feel distinctly that she's not joking anymore, that she's got me pinned pretty good, and I'm not just letting her win. I can't get up. So I start to panic a little bit. And then, I promise you, I wouldn't lie about this. This is extremely embarrassing for me to admit. I never thought in a million years that I would be one of these people. But I distinctly feel, from in betwixt my cheeks, some pressure through the blanket. And I go, okay, no, this is not Tillie. We didn't talk about this. This is not fun. That is an exit-only opening. We don't do this. I'm not having fun, and this is not Tillie. And I start to realize this is not who she presents herself to be. And so I just kind of, I freeze. I don't know what to do. Error 404. We've never been here before, and, this is not Tillie. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Now, I have a little bit of experience with lucid dreaming, so I know that I can wake myself up when I want to. So I do. I do the thing that has me waking up, and I woke up, and of course, yet again, Tillie is sitting next to me, sound asleep. So I wake her up. Okay, what's going on here? Like, this was really uncomfortable. And this is now the second time that I've had an interaction with something that was presenting as her. Should I be concerned? Because, especially with this second encounter, this was a lot more violating, if you know what I mean. And she didn't seem too terribly concerned. Instead, some pieces started to fall together, and she said, I think some well-meaning entities came to give you a wellness exam. And I was like, I'm sorry, come again. I'm not that old. This isn't time for prostate exams and things like that. I'm not ready. And what are you talking about? And she said, I think because, I have some people on my side, on the other side of the veil, that are looking out for me. They just want to make sure that, you're healthy, and they're kind of looking out for you too. And I said, if I wanted a vet visit, I would have visited the vet, but I'm not there just yet. And she said, well, you may not always know what's best for you. And they tried to be nice by presenting as somebody that you were familiar with, which, Tillie. And it kind of made sense to me, because in general, I don't trust very easily or at all, really. And it took, in the very beginning of my relationship with Tillie, it took her revealing some information about myself that I had never, given to anybody as a form of validation to actually trust anything else that was going to come after that. This whole journey that, that I've had, there's no way I would have invested that much trust if it wasn't for that. And so knowing that, she probably is the only person that I would, if I saw, would truly trust through and through. And these entities, I think they knew that. And also knowing that I would not go quietly for a wellness exam, even if it was well-meaning, that's just the form that they would have to take both times. And the first time, as I started thinking about it, okay, that kind of makes sense. Maybe they were trying to, put me to sleep, essentially, to perform some kind of a check on me. And I was as stubborn as I always am, going to fight it, and I fought it. Kind of reminds me, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Jackass challenge where Steve-O and somebody else, they actually do the anesthesia challenge where they have themselves go under varying levels of anesthesia, higher and higher and higher, and they keep fighting it until one of them eventually passes out. But that kind of reminds me of that. And again, I know that I have a stubborn streak, and so all of these things put together, it's starting to kind of make sense. And also got me to thinking about other forms that other entities might be taking. For example, my own personal theories that when people see Jesus or Buddha or any of these religious figures, these entities or Bashar, anybody else who, going into other different types of spiritualities and other religions, that these entities are presenting themselves in such a way that is palatable, comfortable for human consumption, basically, that gets around that skittery nature that we have, or things that if they look threatening, then it must be threatening, is the logic that people usually have. So all of that together began to make sense in general, just why mimics do what they do, based on our own human nature. And I have personally tried to get over that physiological response that I have, that knee-jerk response when something in the environment is unexpected, and it startles or scares me. It starts that, heart beating, clammy hands, that kind of thing. And for maybe some of the non-human entities that don't necessarily wish to cause that kind of discomfort on humans, would just choose not to interact at all, or would choose to interact in ways that are under the radar that we won't perceive. So who knows? We might be interacting with non-human entities far more than we know. Men in Black being a fantastic example of what I think is disclosure of what's going on in the world around us all the time. And there's a scene in one of the Men in Black movies, it might have been the third movie, where the agent goes into the post office and reveals that essentially everybody that works for the post office is an alien, and starts, ripping off their masks. And, I think there'd probably be a large number of the population that would just absolutely devolve into chaos if they saw something like that. It just would break their brain to realize that the world as it's presented to them is not at all what they see or what they think. But I personally am going to work on, calming that nervous system, working on my vagus nerve to maybe someday have an encounter more realistically with an entity as it wishes to present itself. During the day would be nice if that's possible. Maybe not at night, for starters. Just ease into it a little bit. And that may be something that in just being aware of that possibility for some people, they can start to, expand their tolerance for differences. Tillie seems to have more advanced, obviously, interactions with these non-human entities or other beings than I do. It seems like she doesn't have quite that startle response that I have. We were out running errands, and of course, we were at Walmart, where the Wall Martians go. And she said that there was a woman who turned the corner around an aisle that we were coming down, saw Tillie, gave her this huge grin, immediate eye contact, which is generally unusual for people. We're kind of focused on what we're doing, and we don't usually pay attention to other people unless we bump into them or something of that nature. So this person went out of her way to smile at Tillie, give her intense eye contact, and then Tillie said that she saw a third lens, or a nictating membrane, as it would be called in animal biology, close over this woman's eyes, and it was a black membrane. So it was a quick blink, almost like a haha, and then off she went. And Tillie goes, hey, did you see that? No, I didn't. I'm sitting here looking for our tea. I don't know. What do you mean? What did you see? And she explained it to me, and I didn't actually even see the woman's face. I saw her as she was walking away, and I'm, okay, well, I don't doubt what Tillie tells me at this point, because she doesn't make those sorts of things up, and she's had plenty of evidence to back up what it is that she's saying, to validate what it is that she's saying. And so I think, again, sort of like that Men in Black story, that these entities are around us all the time, taking whatever form they deem is necessary for whatever their goal is at that point. And I'm not saying any of it's good or bad, no judgment here. They have their own motives just like we do, and reasons for doing what they're doing based on our behavior. Think about it, we've got an entire government military who's basically ready to shoot down anything that comes near our planet, so why would anything present itself a threat in that way? But I do think they are around, and that perhaps the more aware and open we are to interactions, the more we work on keeping ourselves out of that fight or flight response, that animal primal response, bringing ourselves up into our higher mind, that we may be able to have more of those types of interactions that we say that we want, and maybe less aggressive in provoking a response from something that we're not really sure what it is that we're provoking. So on that note, anybody, if you have stories that you'd like to share, please put them down in the comments, or any other comments about what I've shared today. We welcome that. And until next time, further on down the road here at the Weird Walk Home, we'll tell stories another day.
So slide over here and give me a moment. Your moves are so raw. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. You are my kind. Oh. I need you tonight, 'cause I'm not sleeping. There's something about you, girl, that makes me sweat. So how do you feel? I'm lonely. What do you think? Can't think it all. What you gonna do? Gonna live my life. How do you feel? I'm lonely. What do you feel? Can't think it all. What you gonna do? Gonna live my life. So slide over here and give me a moment. Your moves are so raw. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. So slide over here and